Why, hello, everyone. Welcome to Jolene's Happy Time Craftcast. I am indeed Joleen, and it is lovely to see you on this amazing Wednesday. Let me start. I am so embarrassed. I can't believe that one of you didn't tell me that for the longest time, as I have been recording this content, my ring light has been showing up in my glasses. I can't believe that not one of you had like the, hey, Joleen, you got something on your face. And so I was watching a video back recently and I was like, what are those two small green circles in my eyeballs? Well, it was the reflection of my ring light. So leave it to me to be, I don't know, 59 episodes, 62 episodes in before I realized. Anyway, that's how you know it's authentic because that's like what I'm like in real life. So, anyway, no ring light today, just sitting in the darkness so that we do not have those two green circles surrounding my eyeballs. But anyway, I hope you are all well and wonderful. A couple of announcements just for me, what's going on. So, I shared with you that I went to the Minnesota State Fair on preview night last Tuesday to see my artwork Cerebral hung in the Fine Arts Building, and it was wonderful and exciting, and it just felt amazing. I mean, there were so many people there. Like I mentioned, I was expecting like bougie party with like wine and cheese, and it wasn't that at all. It was like shoulder to shoulder people. It was like walking down the streets of Manhattan. It was absolutely crazy. But then we actually went to the fair, once that it opened, and we went 2 days ago. And I just wanted to say, for those of you that might not know much about the Minnesota State Fair, it's the biggest one in the nation, and it is crazy. It is absolutely crazy. It is like walking through the streets of Manhattan, but at quadruple the width. It is just shoulder to shoulder people. It is so busy. And there's a lot of content about the food. And I also just wanted to say that like normal people like us go and we eat a couple of things, but we do not eat all of that fried food all day long. Like, I don't know how some of those content creators are making it because it's like a couple bites here and there, and you are like Dunskies. So we had the dill pickle pizza. That was amazing. And we had, a malt. Like, did you ever have malts in high school? Darren and I did, and they cost like 40 cents. And it was like a really big deal to get a malt. So we got that malt out of that machine, like from when we were kids. So that was pretty great. And then there's been this debate about pronto pup or corn dog. So we got a corn dog, and I only made it through one bite. It was just so rich and like, kind of hard on your stomach. And then Darren did an elephant ear, and I think that's about it. But it was a really great day. And just my hats off to the folks who volunteer and even work at the Minnesota State Fair. It is crazy. And if you've never been, highly recommend, but just manage your expectations that you are going to be in a sea of humanity. It is just wild. So, and it's here in Minnesota, which is just so crazy. But anyway, enough about that. It was wonderful, and I'm glad that I am a part of it. And I'm hoping that maybe next year I might be selected as one of the artists who gets to work in the studio space next to the gallery in the Fine Arts Building. And they pick 12 artists. And for 12 days, one artist works all day, like making their stuff. And then people walk by and interact and ask questions. So I told the curator that I would love to be that person. That sounds right up my alley. So that's my hope for 2026. So keep your fingers crossed for me. And we'll see maybe if we can't bring that idea to fruition. So let me now tell you about today's guest. Samm Wehman is very special to me because she is almost like not my first guest artist at Big Raven Yoga, but certainly in the first 5. So she has been in our world for a very long time. She is an animal loving artist from Gainesville, Florida. And she followed her heart back into painting and now pursues her painting full time. With joy and purpose, she is a vegan and an advocate. She supports rescues and conservation and eco-friendly art using reclaimed materials like fan blades and all kinds of other cool things. She loves cooking, plant-based meals, yoga, gardening, travel, and of course, her animals. So I know you will do a really good job of welcoming Samm to the Happy Time Craftcast. Here she is. Hi, Samm.
Hey there. Thanks for having me, Joleen.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So, when you meet a new friend on the street and they say, "Samm, tell us what you do." What do you say?
I am a colorful person. I paint and I paint animals. And I think it depends exactly, who they are and in or out of context. Because I think a lot of crafters and artists will agree that these days, as creative people, we're not always taken seriously. So sometimes I might make it
Mhm.
into a joke and just be like, oh, I paint, that's all I do. But
Right.
I feel like there's a lot more to me besides just being an artist. And I recently have been diving a little bit into my personal persona outside of that. So as I always identify as an artist, I have been truly, I guess, looking inward lately and spending a lot more time outside the studio and just giving myself more freedom to just be and be creative, but not so tied to my work because I can be a bit of a workaholic. So short answer is I'm an
Wow.
artist, but a creator and I'm just me.
Right, of course. So, in your artistic practice, then, do you have like a favorite project, a favorite medium, a favorite technique? Because you do all kinds of things, and your animals are just—they're amazing. I hope you get that feedback everywhere you go.
Oh, thank you. And that's actually a really great question. I am envious of you and a lot of other crafters you have on the show, and a lot of people that may be watching, because although I am an artist, I don't always consider myself a crafter. I think that when I try to experiment
Oh,
with new mediums, I often get a little frustrated and I can be set in my ways with what is my comfort zone. So for me, that's
sure.
acrylics. And I love to
Yeah.
paint. I definitely have dabbled with oils in the past, but as an
Mhm.
impatient person, I don't really have the patience to let them dry. And also being aware of like the toxic fumes and things that are in a
Yeah.
lot of art and craft supplies, I've tried to be a bit more cognizant of that. So
Mhm.
I like to work with acrylics, and along with my actual canvases, I like to paint on all sorts of reclaimed materials. Even my canvases are often used, like they're ones
Yeah,
that
mine too.
people might have messed around with and thrown away. Like we all have a pile of
Mhm.
those laying around, right? Like old
Yes,
projects,
we do.
paintings we made that we absolutely hate. Instead of trashing them, make them into something new. So my personal
Mhm.
favorite medium is any repurposed canvas surface, and acrylic or any kind of latex based paints are pretty much my go-to.
And do you have a favorite, like, animal? Because I know you do turtles and butterflies. I've seen everything. Like, I don't
Yeah.
think there's an animal, maybe a dinosaur. I don't think I've seen a dinosaur, but, like, do you have a favorite of those where you're just like, "Ooh, I can't wait to do another one of these?"
I'd say my top three. And I live in
Yeah,
Florida, so I haven't lived in Florida my whole life, but I have for over a decade now. So definitely being more familiar with the whole Floridian vibe, being a Floridian now
sure.
myself. I definitely very connected to the local wildlife here. So that's brought a lot of love for manatees. And I feel like
Ah,
manatees are a very foreign animal to people that don't live in the area
yes,
where you
of
have them,
course.
right? They seem very exotic and kind of strange. But I spend a lot of time in the water because I'm also a free diver. So I've actually swam with manatees a lot in our local springs. And they're just really, really cool animals. They're just so neat. And people here go wild for them. So I enjoy painting things that not only are near and dear to my heart, but that I know, my followers and those my art collectors, people that appreciate my work are really gonna love. So we have a manatee
Yeah.
festival here in Florida every January because
I
that's
wanna
the
go.
winter time. You totally should. It's in
Yeah,
Crystal River. It's great. It's always MLK weekend, and people flock from all over the country to come visit for Manatee Fest. So that is literally my best festival of the year, like as far as sales and connecting with
sure.
people. So I paint hundreds and hundreds of manatees, and I think over the years of doing this festival and preparing for it, I've kind of mastered my own whimsy version of the
Of
manatees. So
'em.
I would say overall manatees are my top favorite to paint for that
Yeah,
reason. People connect with them, people love them. Um, but my personal connection, I think, is with monarch butterflies. And a
yep.
lot of people also have a strong connection with them. As you know, those that have seen the yoga mats, I've done a couple designs that incorporate them as well. So,
Mhm.
monarchs in my past work life, I've done a lot of work with wildlife and entomology. So I've actually done a lot of hands-on conservation work with monarch butterflies. And for that reason, I try to bring sort of my past self and my passion with animals and the environment into the work I do. So in addition to manatees, I paint a lot of monarchs. And they are for any of you crafters that have done monarch anything, they have a very complex design. So it can be hard to sort of get it really intricate if you're just sort of freehanding it. So let me see, I pulled a few.
You can kind of see one over your shoulder too.
Yeah, there's a big one behind me.
Yeah.
As you guys can see, I don't like to keep it too realistic. And this is just a print. I do paintings primarily, but this just is an example of like my whimsy monarchs. They're just free-handed and they're so fluid and free. And that's my preferred style painting. So they are ones that like I can paint like the back of my hand. I could paint them with my eyes closed as far as accuracy. So sorry to totally hijack your question, but I'd say top
No,
two
that's
animals,
great.
manatees and monarchs. And I do incorporate them both a lot too. Like this is an example of kind of when you think of Florida, this is a print too, but you mentioned turtles before. It's got a little bit of everything as far as the manatees. There's some monarchs flying up here. And I do a lot of art that incorporates just manatees and monarchs too. People love that. They eat it up. So it's really
I love
fun for
it.
me.
Okay. So I have so many questions. All right. So, I mean, I know you through our work in design at Big Raven Yoga, where we
Yeah.
design and manufacture yoga mats, right? And our whole thing at Big Raven Yoga is our appreciation and love for original art. So we have about 40 guest artists, and Sam is one of them. And when her designs at Big Raven Yoga sell, we then share with her a royalty to compensate her for her artwork. So, with all of that being said, where else can people find you and find your art? So, like, I know you through that channel, but like, where can my listeners find you?
Yeah. So my main channel, I like to say, is me. When I first started with my art, I sort of had, I think, like my own branding, right? Like my
Yes,
name's Sam and my business name is Samm Wehman Art. So people
yes,
know that. And the reason I chose my name, I don't like to like think of myself as having a strong ego or anything, but I
oh,
realize as my art evolves over time, one thing that'll never change is I'll always be me.
yeah,
I'll probably always paint animals, but my style might evolve. I might do different things, work with different brands, but I wanted to
yes,
always be known for the same thing. So Samm Wehman Art, I have a website,
yeah,
sammwehmanart.com. You can find me on social media. A lot of my collectors buy things specifically through me. So you're talking about a bit about original art. If you want
yeah,
original paintings, I do commissions. So I do any sort of animal art, animals only, no people, nothing else. But I do
right.
pets and I do wildlife that people feel like is very personal to them. Pets are obviously very personal, or an animal that people have a connection with, specifically with the different colors or vibes and energy that'll fit into somebody's home. So I do a lot of
Mm,
art shows here in Florida, specifically
yeah,
in Gainesville, where I live. We have a really big art community here. And I sell a lot just through these pop-up events and
yeah.
higher end art shows, craft fairs, stuff like that. So most people actually get stuff directly through me. And I will say that initially, you were actually one of my first brand partners I started working with. And
Oh,
I
that
was
makes me so happy.
yeah, I was really, really specific because although I'm like, you know what, I want my brand to grow, I want to work with others,
Mhm.
I didn't want to just become that random artist you see having stuff printed on at TJ Maxx or my art
Oh,
randomly
right.
somewhere where it won't really be connected to me or what my own values are. So
Hmm.
when I connected with your brand, it actually just was a fluke because I was researching yoga mats because I was on my own adventure as a yogi at the time. I was doing
Yeah.
some yoga retreats and I was very active in the yoga community and
Hmm.
realized that so many yoga mats out there just suck.
They
So when
do.
I came to yours and a few people I know recommended your brand, I thought this is what I need. But the problem was everywhere else I shopped, they were so boring, right? Like you just
Right.
get, if you're lucky, maybe even a fun color, but they're always
Right.
so maybe a
Right.
print here or there, but if you get a cool print, then they're usually cheaply made and they're just not that great. So when I saw all
No.
the designs on yours, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. Although there's so many designs on your website, I love and I could choose for myself. What if I could do my own art? And that's how we connected. And I am so glad we did. So I've been picky that I don't work with a lot of brands, but the ones I do, I make sure that they're ones that I personally would
Yeah.
use myself because I don't want to be collaborating with a product that I don't even like or I don't really
Right.
respect or agree with the values of the company.
Mhm.
So Sipsy Wilder is another company. Kelly is the owner, and her brand is well known for their hip packs, their different bags, outdoor
Yeah.
gear, purses, accessories, hats. The reason I love it is because, again, I also love her products. I'm very outdoorsy, and most of her stuff is like they're the only purses, hats, different things that I personally use on
Right.
my own. And I know they're really good quality, so I can stand by those products. So I will wholesale and carry some of her stuff. And just like your website, you can
Yeah.
purchase some of my art designs off her website as well. And besides you guys, I do have my art in a lot of shops and stores that wholesale stuff of mine, but it's all of that is just on my own brand. I
Sure.
don't have my name under any other brands besides Big Raven Yoga or Sipsy Wilder.
Well, that makes me so happy. And I mean,
Yeah.
I was trying to think back and I mean, our collaboration goes back to like, I don't know, like 2018, maybe
Yeah.
2009, something like that. So it has been long and lovely. And we,
Pre-COVID times. It's been a
yes,
while.
exactly, exactly. And we absolutely love your work. And so we're really glad that we've been together this long. So, but the other thing is when I was snooping around your website, Sam, you have so many stickers.
Oh,
And
I
I was
do.
and I was like, I want this one. And you know, like I was going through and I'm like, oh my God, there's like so many that I want. And so do you find too that like when you do a show, you know, and when you're thinking about like your work, are you ever thinking about like this would make a good XYZ? Or are you thinking more like, I want to make this turtle and then who knows what else will come of it?
Yeah, usually when I make designs, I actually, speaking of stickers, let me grab a few that I have
Yeah,
saved
please do. Look at
just to
you
show
guys.
you guys. This is
If you're
actually
watching with me, look
an
at that monarch. Just beautiful.
order that I was going to be sending out, but just so you guys can see. So they're vinyl stickers, they're super popular these days. And
Yes.
again, like I said with things I have a connection to, when I originally designed these, it was not at all because I'm like people want stickers. I designed them
Right.
because I'm like I want stickers. I
Yes.
literally our car is covered in stickers. So many of my other stuff is just covered in stickers to the point that I'm a big sticker holic and a collector. So
Yeah.
I'm like, what would I make that's a product that I would buy? Because if
Oh, is
I'm
that
not going to
Florida?
back it, yeah, it is Florida. I have Florida Gators. I have Florida Manatees. But
Oh,
I
that's
figured if I'm not
awesome.
going to buy and use these products, I don't want to carry it. So I tend to go against the grain and I don't make or design products just because I think they're trending or they're cool.
Okay.
Because you know what? That stuff doesn't always last. And I'm sure
Mhm.
with Big Raven Yoga, you guys really stick to your brand and the quality of products you want. And you've always kept that quality yoga mat across the board,
Yep.
regardless of what trends, change in the yoga
Yep.
world. And that's how I am with my products too. So when I make art, I rarely make it being like, hey, I'm going to paint this manatee because I
And
want
it
to put it on a sticker. I painted the manatee because this was a painting for a client. But I ended up falling in love with the manatee that I'm just like,
I
you know what?
love
I
that
want to
manatee.
expand my manatee sticker collection and I'll put them on a product. So I tend to just let my creativity flow first. And then
Mhm.
depending on the energy I receive from the community, like if people all really love
Mhm.
a painting or if it sells quickly or I get a lot of interest, or if nobody really else cares but I do and I love it, I'll be like, you know what, I'm going to make that into a sticker. Like these
So
turtles, if I'm just like, they're cute, I want sea turtles on a
they're
sticker, so I'm
super
just going to
cute.
do it.
So
And the cool thing
somehow
is when
oh,
sorry
sorry.
I was going to say when you follow your heart, in general, as and a lot of crafters know, that's what's most important and other people
Mhm.
follow. So I tend to just,
Mhm.
instead of having the end of the line
Right,
idea, I
it's the
just see where it
creation. Mhm.
flows. Yeah.
So I don't think I know the answer to this question, but how did you get started? Like, have you been an artist your whole life and a maker, and then you were like, boom, this is it? Like, what's that origin story there?
Yeah, so I'll try to keep it as short as I can because it could, my brain's like a train station. This could go off in so many different directions. But I do know I've been an artist my whole life because I know my mom
Yeah,
like has, crayon drawings from as young as I was able to like lift a crayon. And
yeah,
when I was helping my mom clean out the house that I grew up in, I remember going through a lot of boxes and things of my old art and like it was all dogs, like everything, even like assignments I did in school. Like I was always drawing, always doing dogs. When I was in high school was when I guess decided or just knew like, hey, art and animals are my main
yep,
passions, right? So I'm like, I'm obviously going to go to school for art. That's just what I figured I would do. And I took a couple AP classes. Um, I wouldn't say like, oh, I was a real technical, amazing artist, but it was just more, I needed those periods in
Yeah.
school to give me freedom to just keep creating and keep doing it. I had some really great teachers that inspired me a lot. And I was on track to go to art school as far as getting all the preparations in order. But when
Mhm.
we had to pick, a focus, it was called like a concentration that you have to
Sure.
have for your AP
Mhm.
studio, like your whole portfolio. Mine was dogs. So I did that and my teacher encouraged it and it was fine.
I
And
love
um
that.
so then the criticism started to hit. I remember when I was a
Oh,
senior, one thing my teacher said to me once, she was nice, but she wasn't always nice.
right.
We were doing like a review and showing our art to the class and getting feedback. And I remember she, and this wasn't even in a mean way. I actually appreciate it so much now, but it really hurt my
Mhm.
feelings then. I was holding up a piece that I worked on that week of a dog, and she basically cracked down and said, you know what, like, if you actually are going to keep drawing and painting your dogs and animals, you need to study anatomy. Like, you need to really focus on the technical details to make sure your shape is correct and your proportions are right, because right now they're all off. And I was so hurt, and like I don't like to follow directions. So I was kind of just like, "Oh, ouch." And I like kind of brushed it off at the time, and I look
Mhm.
back and I'm like, she was right in trying to build me to
Mhm.
be a better artist, but I also didn't listen, because
Right.
ultimately when I went to portfolio reviews for different schools that I was ready to apply to, they all told me, they're just like, "You have too much dog. You have too much dog." They're like, "We want to see a still life or, a landscape," or and I'm
Right.
like, I don't want to do that. So instead, I applied at the time to go to a school for a pre-vet program, because I figured, I guess I have to work with
Animals.
animals if
Mhm.
I can't be an artist. It seemed very black and white to me. I didn't realize I could make my own path. I thought I had to
Mhm.
choose the paths that were available for school programs. And I did not follow through with applying to art school, but I wound up going to Rutgers. I studied animal science, and that's a whole long-winded story, because I changed my path a few times there. Part of that
Yeah.
also led me to being vegan, because I've worked on a lot of farms and seen there are some great things about farms, but I saw some horrific things that sort of turned me
Yeah.
the other way with a lot of the animals that I worked with. And I became a lot more compassionate about animals. And I just remember when I was in college, I loved working with animals, but I was so excited for when I was able to pick different art classes to take as, extra classes and
Mhm.
stuff. And I would have to go in and talk to, trying to think, like the assistant dean, I guess, whoever were like those were like kind of helping
Yeah.
me fix my path for graduation. I like had to convince them to override the classes so that I could pick more art classes that would somehow fulfill like a cultural need or this for whatever
Right.
I needed to get my degree. So I wound up taking a few painting classes in
Okay.
oils when I was in college, and it kind of reignited my love for painting. And then when I graduated, when I was in college, I was crafting a lot on the side. Here we were getting crafty. I didn't have my art supplies, but I would use nail polish and I would cut out shapes on my soy milk containers, and I would make little ornaments. And I started like gifting, like, because I was a poor college student, so I was making
Yeah.
gifts for people and realizing I'm just going to make it all because I'm an artist and I'm going to do
Right,
this and do
right.
that. And I made a lot of stuff out of duct tape for a while, and I had
Nice.
a lot of pets with me at college, like geckos and stuff. And I remember one of them needed surgery, and it's so expensive to go to an exotic vet. So I raised the money by selling duct tape roses for Valentine's Day. And
I
I
love
realized that
that.
like my entrepreneurial brain was just always thinking, okay, if I need money or I need a gift or I have something that I
Yeah.
have to produce, like I'm going to make it because that's just who I am. And I realized that creative side never really left. So when I did
Right.
graduate college, I had a lot of jobs working with animals, kind of like short-term temporary positions. I had a
Yep.
lot of cool wildlife jobs, entomology. Basically, when I essentially got hired for what I thought was my dream job, working at a local animal shelter, that was a very long kind of political saga that went through. But essentially, the position fell through due to funding, and it
Okay.
wasn't anything that was within my control. But I had been fighting to be hired for that job for about 3 years, because originally I wasn't seen as being qualified, because of all the other jobs I had that weren't directly related and all this stuff. So basically, everyone at the shelter personally wanted to hire me, and the people above them wouldn't let it happen. So I did a really tough inward evaluation of myself and realized,
Okay.
the universe is ripping something out from under me that I really thought I wanted so much, that like my soul
Mhm.
was begging for. And that was like a really, really, I know it for people that haven't like gone through kind of a soul searching thing, it might seem like a silly or petty thing to be upset about, but like it destroyed me. Like it took years to mentally recover from, I guess, the trauma of losing what I thought was supposed to be my life path and my soul's purpose. But shortly after that, in 2018, this was probably right around or right
Yeah.
before you and I had met. Um, a bunch of my friends were just like, why don't you do your art full time? Because I had already been doing it part time while I had these other jobs. I was starting to dabble in a few art markets here
Mhm.
and there, and I did pet portraits for several years. But
Yeah.
I always just thought, like, this is, additional income. It's just a side hustle. I never
Mhm.
thought about it as my job. I thought this is just something I do. If like I have an emergency vet visit, how do I get the extra money, right? I make some
Right.
paintings or I make some duct tape roses. So it kind of carried me through, and I realized how much my art really had my back, and the universe was like
Yeah.
pushing me to do it. Because when I lost that job that kind of was offered and taken away, I also lost the current job I had. I had a few positions at my local museum of natural history, and I loved working there, but I was
Mhm.
paid solely on grants, and they were a lot of
Yeah.
short-term positions because funding in science can be tough.
Yeah.
So one of them was ending, and they were sad to see me go, but they had already allocated the funds because I told them, oh, I got this other job and I was hired
Ah!
for this other job, and then the other job disappeared. So I literally was left jobless, and it's a crazy thing that I look back now and I'm just like, thank goodness things worked out the way they did,
Right, the
because
way that
now,
yeah,
yeah,
the way
now,
that the universe was conspiring there, it sounds like, Sam, like the universe was like, "We have a plan, and we're gonna get this plan, like, we win."
yeah, it's really
Like, we
wild.
always win, we hold the
And
cards. So,
yeah,
one of the things that the people who listen to the Happy Time Craftcast, they love to know, and they write in and they ask us about it, which I'm so grateful for, friends. Keep doing that. But they like to know about technique and supply and like what are the tools that are I'm not making anything without them. Like these are the things that I have to have. So, are you loyal to a brand? Are you loyal to a particular medium? Or, I mean, we know that you enjoy a repurposed canvas or a reclaimed canvas or fan blade or whatever it might be. But what about some of the other things? You have products that you're like, this is the one.
yeah. So I wouldn't say I have any brands that I'm like, you need to buy this, but I will tell
Right.
you a little bit, I guess, what's in my studio and like
Yeah.
what's here at my desk. So as you mentioned, fan blades. So
Yeah.
these are a must. I literally have boxes of them. So if anyone listening is a hoarder, I know you're out there, because most crafty people tend to be, at least
We
a little
might.
bit.
We might.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I recommend either keeping or collecting some items that you just are like, I can't get rid of that. I got to use it for something.
Yep.
Like, my advice is just use it, because instead of hoarding and taking these supplies to say someday we're going to use it, just do it. As I
Mhm.
mentioned earlier, I have so many canvases, many that people just donate and give to me.
Yep.
People literally in the community know I am like the trash artist, in a sense
Yep.
that if
Me
there's
too.
stuff they feel bad throwing away, they just dump it on my porch all the time.
Mhm.
So I get tons of
Mhm.
this. So
Mhm.
I highly recommend, wood is really great. I get a lot of really nice wood pieces to reclaim any of that. So having a
Mhm.
nice surface, especially something you might regard as trash, hold on to those. Those are really fantastic
Yes.
for working on, even if you don't quite know yet. As far as paints, let me see some stuff I have on my desk. I literally, this is like the opposite of what you suspected. I don't have any specific brands I'd recommend. So, for example, here's a big thing of, this was originally from Hobby Lobby, but as you can see here, I purchased it at a thrift store for $2 because I am super thrifty and savvy. So if I'm out
We love
thrifting
that.
and I
Yes.
find something cheap, and also good for the environment, right? Because it's used,
Yeah.
I'm gonna grab that. I have literally like bins and bins of like just tube, like Liquitex is a brand I love.
Yep.
These are just really heavy body acrylic paints, but these are also silly expensive. Like I
They
want to say
are.
it's a tube this size might be like $20 or more. I was in a craft store
Mhm.
at one point, or an art store, and I'm like, oh my God. But these were a bunch of things that somebody kind of donated, kind of gave to me. I did a job for like this client years ago, and it was kind of like, I guess, a tip. Her mother had a lot of art supplies, and her mother passed away,
Mhm.
so she had all this stuff, and she just gave me a huge box of paints. And this was years ago, and like I'm still using them because stuff lasts
Amazing.
forever. So I have
Mhm.
all kinds of just, literally, I probably have like 100 tubes of random paints. I have more, as you can see here, Hobby Lobby. I love a really good, just like cheap, thick paint that's good for acrylics. And then I also will sometimes dabble and mix in like brands that you can get at like Walmart or
Oh, yeah, Apple
Michael's.
Barrel.
Yep. Craft paint is really good. And the reason I like them too is because just like a lot of these tube paints, they specifically will say on them what kind of surfaces they're for. So if you do use reclaimed, repurposed surfaces, something to keep in mind is if you're painting on wood or especially something that's not porous, you are going to have to get the right kind of paints. So I'll show you. Dig out what I got here. So this is Craft Smart. I believe these are from Michael's. So this is like a multi-surface paint. Something like this is an essential if you are painting on like, I want to say metal, not really like outdoor metal, but if you're painting on things that are not porous inside, and you want it to stick and bind to it, this is really great. Also, as a muralist, I do murals too. So I have a lot of house paints, and having things that are rated for certain things, like I have exterior paints that'll be good for a lot of tougher surfaces. I have marine paints because I've done some projects on canoes recently. Those paints they're so toxic though, but they are so tough as far as if you have crazy surfaces you want them to bind to outside, like long-term weatherproof, everything. It is great. So I definitely recommend not necessarily always staying loyal to like a brand, but really doing research for the types of surfaces, especially in if someone's listening and you decide to dabble in some more unusual reclaimed surfaces, making sure that it's compatible is extremely important.
Well, I think what you're saying too is very refreshing for like all of us listening, because I think sometimes crafters, we can get into this space where we think we need this exact brand with this exact color. And if I don't have this brand and this color, then I'm incomplete. I went through it myself recently because, I have really good friends who are very well-known watercolor artists. And Sam, it vexes me. I'm not getting it. I don't get it, right? But I want to, I want to win my watercolor battle. Like, I want to be able to say that I understand it. And so I have decided that what I need to do is I need to practice. I can't just sit down and be like, I'm going to do this cool watercolor thing when I don't practice. I don't know what I'm doing. So I was influenced by some expensive watercolor paint, and I was putting it away in my little tub of watercolors where it joined a family of 100 other little pieces of watercolor, so it's like, this is really good. These are good reminders for us that we don't need absolutely everything
Oh my gosh,
to practice.
And this reminds me, I'm just because I have it here. So I am not in any way bashing this brand. This is
Of course
just my
not.
experience. So this one, I don't know if anyone's ever heard of the paint puck. So this is something that I want to say, it was when I started my art full time and I finally was like, oh, I'm going to give myself permission to like spend money on new things. Right? Because I was just getting all this crafty stuff, getting paints given to me. It's essentially, mine is disgusting, but it's essentially like this silicone stretchy thing, and you put the water cup on it, and as you can see, mine is disgusting, and it helps you like clean and get the paint off the bottom of your brush, and then the top part goes on it, and then you can like put all your brushes in it and rest it so they're not sitting in the water, all this stuff, right? So it's marketed to keep your brushes so clean, but as you can see, mine, and it's like it can go through the dishwasher, this and this. I have destroyed mine, and I still occasionally use it, but it is so gross that I find it actually makes my problem worse. And it's something this was something I bought back in like probably 2018. And at the time I might've spent like $35 on it, which for me was a lot of money at that point, because I was like, I'm thrifty. Why would I buy something new and spend that much money? And for some people it might be great, but for me, like, it's kind of not working. And I learned exactly what you described, right? We see these ads. We all get hooked on social media, whether we want to or not. Even if you're just checking in real quick, there's so much stuff that gets us sucked in, and you have to realize, are these products really for me? Right. And I recently, there's another brand called Zebra. They make really good paintbrushes that I
Yeah.
took the plunge because their ads sucked me in. And I will say their products are really good. I'm liking them so far, but I have also managed to ruin some of their paintbrushes as I've ruined other things equally. And I think it's me because I don't really clean my stuff properly. But
Right.
on par with what you're saying, whoever's
Mhm.
listening, just remember you don't, some things are not really better than others. If you are a creature of habit, right? And you either
Yes,
clean or don't clean your stuff the same way, getting a fancy
exactly.
product isn't going to make your stuff cleaner. If you get a more expensive paintbrush, but you still don't take care of it, it's
Right,
not going to make
same.
it better. If you're like, I want this fancy watercolor paint and suddenly I'm going to know how to do watercolors. No, you won't.
Right.
You still have to put the work in. So, you know, it's refreshing to hear that back from you too, in agreement
Oh,
that you know, we are creative entities with or without these products. Like you can just go to Walmart or the craft store. You can go to a freaking thrift store and get stuff that's on sale and just be
well,
like, I'm going to use this to paint.
with my brushes, what's really interesting this is what I do. And I had I use mason jars, glass mason jars, fruit jars, canning jars, whatever. And I put rocks, like river rocks, in the bottom of
Ooh,
them.
that's so
And
clever.
yeah, and so I have one for paint and one for glue, and I keep them on my work table and I painted on them. This one's paint, this one's glue. And I've had people in my studio and they'll be like, "Oh my God, Jolene, you have to wash your brushes." And I'm like, "I know I do, but I don't." Um, and so this is what I do. And I don't really sweat it because I don't have nice brushes
Yeah.
yet. I have like really inexpensive brushes that like they stand up to my abuse, right? Like they
Yeah.
are in the pot of water for a month and they're fine because they're just
Yes.
not very
Yes.
good
Same
brushes.
here. Same here.
Right.
Oh, it is so nice to hear this from a fellow
Yes,
artist.
but I washed them yesterday. So I emptied the rocks into a colander and I washed the rocks. And I just have to say, I might need to make a note to wash them more often because it was an unearthly smell. It was really bad
Mm,
from
yeah.
like being in the water and the glue and all of that. But I think that I've got a good solution if I at least remember to rinse it, wash it, empty it like weekly.
Yeah, weekly sounds good to me. That sounds more
I would
manageable. I
have
mean,
to.
people
I
who
would
do it
have
once
to.
a day, like where are you even from? Are you from this planet? If you're like,
Right.
are you like some extraterrestrial magical person? If you actually clean your
Right.
brushes every day, I would be so impressed. But
I know, right?
I
I admire
yeah,
that person. So, okay, so what about this question? So, Sam,
sure.
what are you working on right now? Like, what's on your work table? What's got you fired up? What's exciting?
So it's hard to say. At the moment, I have been super fired up. I've kind of been in, I don't want to say an artist block, but the
Mm.
summertime is usually a very slow time for me. And
I think that's good for
this,
us to hear that this
yeah,
happens to full-time working artists and hobbyists. Like this happens.
yeah, absolutely. Right now I'm kind of, I wouldn't even say a pause. I am painting, but I haven't been pushing myself. So I, being in Florida, our art show season typically runs from the fall through the
Sure.
winter and then into the spring. And then I usually kind of have a hiatus for the summer. And a lot of times in the summer, I do a lot of murals, I do some big indoor projects.
Mhm.
This has just been a slow year. And I will say, I'm not complaining. I kind of each new year when I make resolutions, I put out to the universe what I'm looking to
Mhm.
change about myself and my business. And I think the past few years I've been growing and growing and growing. And every year I'm like, I want to do more projects. I want to make more money. And I finally kind of broke the ceiling of, I think, financially where I wanted to be. So
Right.
this year, I really wanted to step back and be like, I actually want to step back. And so far, I've been making less money this year, but I've been spending a lot more time for myself. I've had
Mhm.
designated, like, as I mentioned earlier, I'm a diver and I spend a lot of time outside in the water in the springs.
Yeah.
And I used to always say no when people wanted to get together, invite me to go diving. So I'd be like, no, no, I have to work. And I think anybody else that's self employed understands it's so hard to
Yes.
say yes, to give yourself permission to do anything because
Yes.
you feel like you're tied to your job 24/7. You don't have
Yes.
real hours. And, if you're doing something that's not work related on a weekday and then you have work stuff on the weekend, there's literally no boundaries. So I designated that, like, every Tuesday, for example, is my dive day. I go out, I'm free, I literally am not in the studio at all, I don't even really answer my
That's
emails.
awesome.
And it's great. And then I also, if
Mhm.
it's not art show season, sometimes I even let myself have weekends off too. And then sometimes if there's other days I'm just not feeling it, I don't. So it's been a little slow. And August is usually a time that my husband and I travel. But this year we didn't have a lot of travel this month specifically. So I've kind of just been hanging around. But I will share something that I have been working towards, or at least I need to get my butt into gear in the next month. Is I actually, speaking of universe conspiratorial weird stuff going
Yeah,
on,
right.
I'll share a very short story. I just want to share this because I think it gives hope for a lot of people. Like if you have,
Mhm.
I don't know, if you ever feel lost, I'm going to try and make it short because it could be long. But last year I was going to a wedding in New York in October, and I that Saturday I had a huge art festival that I did all by myself because my husband was the best. He was in the wedding party. He wasn't the best man, but he was
Okay.
one of the best men. Like he was in the wedding party. So he
Yeah.
had to fly out earlier. The wedding was on Sunday. This big
Yep.
event. Fortunately, it was only a 1 day event on Saturday. So I did it myself. Two of my really good friends helped me. And then they helped drive me to the airport on Sunday morning. And they drove
Okay.
me to the airport at like, and my flight was at like 6. So they got me there at like 4, like super,
Yep.
super early. I get there. I tend to be late to things, but I've never missed a flight before. I wound
Right.
up missing my flight. And let me say, this was also a flight that like this airport had a flight with a connection. Basically, I needed to get to New York, and this was the only path to get there in time for the
Yes.
wedding because I had to be in Central Park by 4. And I had to like also get ready and get changed and all this
Right.
stuff. It was
Right.
chaotic. And I like
And
haven't
stressful.
been
Yes.
yeah, and I don't go to New York, so I was like, I know I'm gonna have to take like buses and a train and all this stuff. I literally had a mental breakdown in the airport, and this sudden wave came over me that just like a little voice just said like this happened for a reason. Like I'm like getting chills thinking about this because I like
Yeah.
was literally breaking down. I was crying. People probably thought I was insane, and suddenly I just calmed down and I'm like, I don't know what I'm gonna do right this second, but like it's gonna be okay. So I just kind of chilled out. My husband wasn't even answering his phone because it was so early in the morning. He wasn't awake. He was in New York
Yes.
staying with our friend. I was calling
Okay.
her a million times. Finally, basically, she saw my missed calls. She just dropped what she was doing. She woke up at 6 in the morning, whatever. She books me another flight. She just paid for it. She had extra credit. She books me a flight at a different airport that was 2 hours away. And she's like, I don't know how you're going to do it, but you just need to get there. So I go to the rental counter, which isn't open yet at this hour. And I'm like, I'm just stuck at this airport. I can't do anything. So I called my friend out of hesitancy who drove me at 4 a.m. She finally like fell back asleep. And I'm like, I was crying and I'm like, I am so sorry. And she's like, oh my God, did you miss your flight? And I'm like, yeah. So her and her husband dropped what they were doing. They drove me 2 hours to this other airport.
Okay.
I'm at the airport waiting for my new flight. And basically I meet someone sitting next to me on that flight whose best friend owns a series of famous restaurants in New York City and was looking for an artist to put art in his new location that was
Stop.
opening in Central Park.
Stop.
And the restaurant is opening in October. And I've been in touch with him ever since. And the guy who I met on the plane, who's the best friend of the guy who owns the restaurants, is also an author. And he wound up sending me a bunch of his books. And we've just been coordinating. And I'm not sure yet if it's definitely going to happen or not, but we've just kind of throwing ideas in the future of maybe collaborating on a book of like me illustrating something. But the restaurant thing definitely is happening because I've been in touch and I have stuff in progress. So this piece is currently in progress. It's almost done, but I'm going to show it just because I feel like to make this super long story
That's
back,
the craziest thing I have
we're
ever
circling
heard.
back. Your question was, what are you currently working on or excited
Yeah.
about right now? So I am typically a very colorful person,
Yes.
but
Yes.
I have been doing a series of paintings
Oh,
that, I mean,
get out.
you might still think this is colorful, but it's actually not for me. To me, this is like several shades of neutrals and grays with some colors thrown in. To me, this is very
Okay, so
like more
if you are
neutralized, and they're not
listening,
done yet. There's a lot more details needed in some of the dogs, but the restaurants, the series of them, they're called the Gray Dog. And the owner specifically wanted something a little bit on theme with that. So I kind
oh
of
my
turned
gosh.
it around. And because like this butterfly behind me, this is my normal style, right? It is
Yes, yes.
crazy, colorful, whimsy, chaotic. I was like, you know what? I want to make something that shows that even in all these shades of gray and mundaneness for me, that isn't as bright and colorful, the closer you look, right, with all these colors you look when you look up close, that there is something more there and that
I
things
just
just,
okay, so I
there's
have
more
to
to it, you
say,
know?
for those that are listening and maybe not watching, I need to describe what Sam just held up.
Oh, I
So
forgot people might not be able to see
that's
this.
okay.
My
That's
bad.
okay. So So she was holding up a canvas panel of a collection of dogs. I think it was 3 dogs across, 4 dogs long, maybe.
Yeah, three and
And
three, nine
yeah, they're
total.
3 and 3. It's a grid of 9, and they are beautiful. Um, I would say that they are more subdued from your usual palette, but amazing color still. Like those are kind of my colors. Like I love the grays, the gray green, the gray pink. Like I
Yes.
love all of that. That's got a real Joleen aesthetic to it. But they still have your style of, like, I know that animals don't have personalities, they have animalalities or whatever you would call that. But you still get warmth and you get like energy and soul. Soul. You still
Thank
get soul
you.
from those animals. I loved it so much. That is a wild ride of a story, my friend.
It
Like
is. And the end of
I
it is
didn't
that
know where you were going, but
I actually did make it to the wedding, which when I've shared this story, people are like, wait, did you make it to the wedding? The guy I
right,
met on
right,
the
right.
wedding, and I gave him my business card and he emailed me later that day and he's just like, so did you make it? Like, I just need to know because I had to take 2 buses, a
Of course you
train,
did.
an Uber, and then another Uber. It was chaotic. I was so stressed that day, but like it worked out.
Mhm.
So I don't know. It's
Well,
just wild, but it's my
that
favorite
is an amazing
project right
story.
now.
It's
Yeah,
amazing,
thank
and
you.
really congratulations, Sam. That's, like, so exciting, and I would imagine incredibly validating, and, like, even me having this piece at the Minnesota State Fair, like, I know I've talked about it so much, but boy, I feel so good about it, and, it was given an award, and I feel good about that. I just feel so, seen, I guess.
Yeah, that's
Um,
amazing.
yeah, and it's a really nice feeling, but I wanted to also share what's on my work table. So I so here on my farm, we have been having chicken crisis. We don't usually have naughty raccoons, but we've had some naughty raccoons,
Oh
and usually
no.
our raccoons live in harmony with our chickens. Like we never had issues until recently. We have a
Oh,
very naughty, murderous raccoon who has killed like 3 of my chickens. So
I'm so
we're
sorry.
working on systems. We've got alarms set. We got all kinds of things, like, we're not killing the raccoon, for those of you who have wrote in and said, "Kill the raccoon." Like, we're not doing that. But we're also trying to encourage the raccoon not to kill our chicken. So,
Sure.
anyway, so we have 18 chickens, and our chickens just add an incredible, they add so much to the life here on the farm. Like, our guests love our chickens. We love our chickens. Anyway, so this is my most recent obsession. And for those of you
I love that. Oh, how
So for those of
fun.
you listening and can't see me, I am holding up a chicken that I cut out of books, right? So the covers are made of books, and it's a chicken. It's like kind of flat and one dimensional, could be like a Christmas ornament or something. But then I cut books again to make a mosaic of books on the chicken. So it's a mosaiced chicken, right? Um,
Oh.
and I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but I have chickens in my heart. So I don't know if this is going to be a kit. I don't really know, but I had to first kind of come up with the concept and the plan. And so that's my chicken. The other thing that I've been working on is I have this amazing neighbor who I talked about a few shows back, and she's an art teacher, and she knows that I love the things that she no longer has use for, and she has dropped off her collection of books on art or art inspiration or art technique, right? It's just an amazing collection. I'm so grateful. Like books that I probably would have eventually maybe bought myself, but maybe not, because you know how they're really expensive. They're like coffee
Yeah.
table art books. So anyway, so I wanted to make her something to say thank you. So I have been in a pretty big hexagon phase lately. And
That is so
so
cool.
thank you. So I've cut book board into hexagons and then
Oh.
use them to cover a lazy Susan. And so I'm working on my design a little bit because I don't want it to look like a soccer ball. And I feel like it kind of does. And I think that's
It
from
does remind me
using,
of one a bit.
yes, yeah, it's from using the solid pieces. So maybe I need to like kind of rework that and rethink that. But this is going
Yeah.
to be my thank you to her for the lovely gift of books. So I've been
And it's
working on
made
that.
of books, so it's
And it's made of books,
perfect.
Right,
So
but not the books
thoughtful.
that she gave me. They're made
Of
from
course
other books
not.
from
But
the
it goes with the
garbage.
theme. I love that.
Right, it goes with the theme, so I need to get that delivered to her. And then my final show and tell is that so I've been on this watercolor quest, and oftentimes I'm so lucky to be the recipient of people sending me things. And Sam, I just cannot wait to share this with you. So we had a guest who was here for a retreat, and she came with her sister, and she is a very whimsical, I would say, doodle-esque watercolor person. And she sent me a card that she made, and it's a self-portrait.
Oh, that is so fun. And that's so sweet.
I know, isn't it
Oh,
sweet? And on the back of it is her thank you note for
so
attending
cute.
the retreat. And I'll just read you some of it. So she says, to my friends, Darren and Joleen, I'm not going to try and dig up a bunch of superlatives to describe my experience at Big Raven Farm. The beauty of the farm is idyllic, and it sets the tone for the retreat. The attention to detail was super focused on the guest. Thank you. I mean, black washcloths. I went away
Oh,
with a spiritual connection. See you again soon. All my love, Diane.
that is so
And
sweet. And
so,
she left a piece of herself with you. I
yes,
love
and I love it. I love it so much. I cannot wait to hang it in my studio. So that was the one. And then she sent me two more that I could maybe use because she sent them with envelopes. So I could send them,
that.
but I'm not
The
going to, Diane. I'm going to keep
chickens.
them. Chickens. So
Oh my
she
goodness.
knows what I love, and she knows that I love chickens.
Those
And
are awesome.
I know I will love and cherish them forever. So Diane, thank you so much. Don't you just love having a little piece of like, I love art so much, and I mean, like, even, like, when our kids were little and making things at school, like, I still have all of that stuff. I can't part with it, even though, they say take a picture of it or whatever, whatever. Like, I just feel like it's almost like to complete my thought, like, my dad had passed away in 2000. And whenever I find something that he left a mark on, like his handwriting or his signature, Sam, I can't get rid of it. I have to keep it because it just kind of says that they were there. And
Yeah.
I love that about art. I love that, Diane did a self portrait of her in this beautiful blue dress, and now it's mine, and I will like cherish it forever. I love it so much. I don't know. Thoughts?
I agree. My dad also passed away a few years after yours. And that actually just like made me think of a whole thing related that I don't have a lot of stuff of his, it but the few things I do and anything like, for example, I still have my mom, and whenever she writes me cards, even if they're just simple, I keep everything because I think losing a
Mhm,
parent, or for anyone that has lost anybody close to you in your life,
mhm, mhm,
you realize when they're gone, just like you said, you now have that memory, like that stamp in
mhm.
time forever. And I tend to be a little bit of a hoarder. So I keep all these things because I'm like, one day when I don't have my mom, like I'm going to be grateful I kept every little card, no matter how simple, just because she wrote in it.
Mhm,
And I
mhm.
think with art, we put blood, sweat, and tears and a real piece of our energy into it, especially when it's
Yeah.
an original piece and not just like a print
Mhm.
or something. That person touched the page and their ink or
Yeah.
their colors touch that, and they put the energy into it. And us talking about dirty brushes, like that artist might have had their dirty brushes that were sitting in their pebbles and water for a whole month, and
Right.
now that water was dried on the paper to make that
Mhm.
piece, and like you have that memory along with it. There's just so much that makes art authentic, and I
Agreed.
think not everybody, like when people purchase art, they might not be able to buy or afford that, and they get prints because it is associated with a memory or something just as
Mhm,
significant tied
mhm,
into it. So I think it's so important, like you said, both as a collector, those of us that savor art
mhm,
from others, from our friends and family, or as
mhm.
creators, as most of us are, think about the feeling, not just that you're putting into creating it, but like how that's going to change someone's
Right.
life.
It's
They get that piece of
emotional.
yeah,
Mhm.
that piece of art is always
Mhm.
going to remind you of that retreat and having her there and
Yes.
those memories you made together. And if somebody,
Mhm.
picks up art at a craft fair, or you send someone a holiday card that you made, they're going to think of something that's in that element of the card and the relationship with you. That's going to make them think of
Mhm.
it every time they see it hanging up or pinned to their fridge or on the bulletin board or in, a memory box. So I
Mhm.
think energy and reminding ourselves how much there's a significance to that. There's more
Oh,
to art
yeah.
than just art.
Well, it's emotional, and I think that I know that, when I'm creating something, I certainly feel emotional. I feel, like I'm trying to communicate something or create something because, I can be more of a builder. Like I build stuff, like I build Lazy Susans or I build books or I build mosaics, right? And I still feel like though that the placement, the choice, the creation, like even like the problem solving, especially as I get more into my work with different kinds of mosaic and medium, like I'm mathing. And that's not like a Jolene word. Like Jolene doing math is like that's not my thing, but it's the problem solving and like the figuring out like how I'm going to get through that I really think has made my artistic practice even more special to me because it's just like the watercolor. Like I feel like I should be able to do this, but I haven't practiced. So for goodness sakes, of course I can't do it yet. Like I
Yeah.
just think that it is that like the realization and the grace of like just because I'm an artist doesn't mean that I can like sit down and do all the things. Like I still have to stretch the muscle, right?
Yeah. We still need
Yeah.
practice, and we can't all be perfect at everything.
Right.
And like I mentioned, acrylics are where I'm painting is where I personally feel comfortable. But if I were to
Mhm.
try to build or create things like in a similar process as you do, I wouldn't be able to do that. It's all in our process, whether it's an
Mhm.
experimental phase or whether we're so experienced at doing the same thing, we can practically do it
Right.
with our eyes closed in a couple minutes. And I think that's a really valid point too, that, when when we compare ourselves to other artists, first of all, don't do that ever. It's not
Right.
good.
Or try to
Remembering,
stop, right?
yeah, let's
Mhm.
not, because we all are completely different people with different experiences, different talents. I
Mhm.
constantly, people come up to me, wow, that's so great, I could never do that. And I say, well, what do you do for a living? And they tell me, maybe for example, they're a math teacher, and I'm like, well, I can't do math, so I can't do what you do. You got to
Right.
cherish in your own strengths and recognize the ability to learn. So just
Mhm.
because you can't watercolor doesn't mean you can't learn. It takes years of
Right.
practice for us to do anything. And I think that it's, important to remember that.
Absolutely. Well, okay. So, Sam, thank you so much for being here. I mean, time has flown. I cannot believe we're almost out of it. But before I let you go, there's just a couple things I want to re-ask. So,
Sure.
I will be sure to link in the show notes where folks can find you. We will link your website, and on your website, you have stickers and prints and originals. And am I missing it? Oh, and maybe bags and hats or purses.
So a little bit about that. For anyone who actually is interested in buying art, so I have an Etsy shop. That's what my online shop.
Okay.
Anybody, I think a lot of us are familiar with Etsy.
Yep.
I love and hate it. And for that reason, there's a lot I don't list on there because it just hasn't been financially worth it to me.
Sure.
So for that reason, for original art pieces, I mostly just sell them in person in like exhibits
Okay.
or displays, or people can contact me directly to find out what I have
Okay.
in stock. I also do commissions. So if you're interested in commissioned art, all the info is available on my website directly. And there's an order
Okay.
process where you communicate with me, mostly through email, to go over all the info for that. And then
Okay.
for small things like stickers and note cards, those I do sell on my Etsy shop. But if you are interested in bigger things like prints, tote bags, stuff that's like of a larger nature that I just don't have in stock there, I suggest reaching out directly if you're not in the
Okay.
Gainesville or Florida area, because shopping in person, of course, is always the best way. But I know not
Absolutely. We will be
local.
sure. We will be sure to link all of that stuff. And I'll put a link in too so that they can see your yoga mat designs at Big Raven Yoga because they are
Yeah, definitely.
exceptional. They're exceptional. So we'll make sure they know how to find those. And since we are the Happy Time Craftcast, we always like to ask. So, Sam, what brings you the most happiness?
I think just following my gut, following my heart, whether that's creating, or like I mentioned earlier, trying to find peace and getting away from working and just going out to the Florida Springs and diving for a bit and being with friends. I think,
Of course.
life is there's too much going on in this life and everything in today's day of age for us to take
Mhm.
ourselves or really anything too seriously. And I know we do got to survive, we do got to live, but my own happiness, I think, truly comes from within, and just not
Mhm.
forcing things anymore. I don't want to
Right.
be exhausted and tired and hate my work because it's what I'm just forcing myself to do all the time. So I think
Mhm.
just listening to that natural flow, whether I just take a day off because I want to hang out with my dogs, or I want to get outside, or I want to tie myself up in my studio and paint for 12 hours straight, whatever it may
Right.
be, I follow what that natural flow is, because it's not always going to be the same, and it's not always going to look like a normal 9 to 5 job
Mhm.
that society forces on us.
Right. I mean, that does sound really happy. Like, I love that. I love all of those words. And thank you so much for sharing all of that and more with us today. And like I said, I will be sure to link where you all can find Samm and her work in our show notes. So, Samm, again, thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here.
And
It is
thank you for having
Of
me. I really,
course,
really
it's been an
appreciate it.
absolute pleasure. And for those of you listening, I hope you will join me on our next show. Sharon Burton is my guest, and she'll be here on September 10th. So we're off for the holiday. Sharon actually is an artist, a curator, a poet, a certified creative coach. She's the founder of Spark Your Creative. She helps others revive their creativity through coaching, workshops, and her podcast. She's the author of Creative Sparks, and she loves collage and mixed media, things that I love as well. So we'll be talking to Sharon on the 10th of September, and I hope you will join us then. So, Samm, again, thank you for a great episode. I'm so glad you were here. And again, for those of you listening, I hope you are as happy as possible until I see you the next time. Thanks, everybody.